Welcome everyone to our Science Communication Without Borders webinar or meeting. It's the third in a row meeting, and we aim these meetings for people who organize science communication and science outreach, science engagement activities, organizations, to share really the know-hows, the behind the scenes part that not so often are presented, but then are super valuable for us to exchange and to know what are the best practices, what worked, what was difficult, and maybe we can also find places where we can help each other with our experience. And today we are super lucky to have Falling Walls present one of the most important science engagement conferences. Can I call you a conference, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, conferences in Germany and also around Europe and the world. And if 𝗕𝗶𝗶 is connected, she is apparently, I wanted to invite her to say a few words about her experience being a participant of Falling Walls Engage, and then we will hand over to Nicholas, who will present us the official and then hopefully behind the scenes part as well. 𝗕𝗶𝗶.
Yeah, actually, I would actually say that Falling Walls, in general, right? If you speak about Falling Walls, big organization, it's kind of a multi-layer network. A multi-layer network because it connects together so many different networks of engagers, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, scientists. That's why it has several sections, right? And I will let Nicholas present one of that section, and I invite everyone actually to visit their amazing, beautiful website with all recorded talks, which are really well recorded. I mean, I really personally enjoy to watch it on the YouTube. And when I didn't know this community, I was really like, okay, it's one more conference, right? But it's more than the conferences. It's actually the extension of it is more important than the event itself. So thanks a lot for coming, and we will hope that this recording will help to bring more people to Falling Walls.
Thank you so much, 𝗕𝗶𝗶. And it's so nice to hear that you regard Engage as much more than the conference, because that's actually also what we're aiming at. And I think what has been the feedback from many of our engagers that actually came to the conference and to the pitch competition, like we have Stephanie here with us today, who also took part in it. 𝗕𝗁 will speak later. And like what we heard many times was that like actually the competition aspect about it is the least interesting even, but like it's actually about coming together and realize that there's such a global community of science engagers all around the world, and the exchange with them is actually what is like the most important part of coming to Berlin in November. Yeah, so should I start right
Sure.
away, like dive in? Then I will
Do
start my screen, share my screen. And so I think I can't talk about Falling Walls Engage without mentioning a couple of words about the foundation. It's much older than Engage itself, and I think you actually have to see a little bit the bigger context. So I will keep it short, but the Falling Walls Foundation was founded 10 years ago on the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and is actually named after that to commemorate what has happened and how it was such an important turning point in history. So falling walls, and the question that actually drives us today is, what are the next walls to fall in society? And Falling Walls has actually found many different answers to it. And it started with a big conference 10 years ago, where they brought together many scientists, businessmen, artists from all around the world to come together in Berlin on that specific day. It's each year, it's the 9th of November, and to actually discuss that question and think about what are the next challenges that we're facing. And throughout the years, these 10 years, there have been more and more programs and things added to it. So we have the Falling Walls Lab, which is like a pitch competition for young scientists that develop new solutions or scientific developments, breakthroughs that they present. We have Falling Walls Venture, where it's like science-based startups that have add this entrepreneurship aspect to Falling Walls. And then the latest edition was actually Falling Walls Engage. It's only now like 2 years old, and it was it came about because Falling Walls was thinking like, how can we actually finish this cycle and like think it to the end, and like what is missing. And that is actually how to communicate science and how to engage people in science. So they added another pitch competition. All of these like Lab, Venture and Engage, they are taking place a day prior to the 9th of November. And then the winners, like last year, Aravind, who will speak later, they get to present their initiative then one day later on the grand stage at the Falling Walls conference with all 800 guests. So it was really like the thought of like thinking like having a wholesome approach to like what the scientific community is all about. And so Engage is really focusing on the science engagers. And in the first year we had the finale. I actually have a slide for that as well, like here. So on 8th November, we have the most outstanding science engagement initiatives on stage. Stephanie, for example, was also one of them. Usually in years that are not 2020, we actually have 20 science engagement initiatives on stage from all around the world, and they present. And then one is the Falling Walls Science Engagement of the Year. Obviously, this has changed a little bit, like so many things changed for so many people this year. So we won't do the same now because we can't have anyone fly into to Berlin and have their conference in the same way like we used to. So we decided to switch things up completely and go a completely different way. So what we decided is to like actually celebrate science engagement much bigger, and actually not only on this one day, but like leading up to it. So we have not only 20, but we actually have 100 finalists this year from all around the world. And leading up to the 8th of November, we will present all of them in clusters on our social media and on a library on our website. So to actually show the whole diversity and range of formats and people behind these amazing initiatives on our website. And then on the 8th of November, we will have a top 10 that will be pre-selected by the jury. And they are like basically really like the best in that one year. And from this top 10, we will have one science engagement breakthrough of the year that then gets to present one day later. So it's all a bit different. And I think what is I think most important in the context of this meeting here, as Victoria has also mentioned, is actually like look behind the curtain, right? Like, I mean, this is now all like what is on our website, like what everyone can read up on. So I think one challenge for us has certainly been how can we create this feeling of community? Because like when I started talking, like building on what 𝗕𝗶𝗶𝗖𝗺𝗀 has said, it is really about like the most important aspect of coming together is actually having that exchange and having that feeling of community. And that is the one thing that seems to be like completely missing completely, right, this year. So we actually kind of more reduced to only the pitch aspect. So what can we do about that? And so we decided to have a much more extensive program. And in the last year, Stephanie Lioba, you guys might remember, last year we had a community day on the 7th of November. So that was like even a day prior to the Engage Day. And we came together, the finalists met the first time, they heard about each other's initiatives, and we had like a small pitch training preparing for the next day. And I think it was super valuable for everyone to actually meet and see. And I think, there were some people in the room that actually didn't know that there were so many other engagers, and that for the first time felt like, okay, there are people doing exactly the same thing. Because something that we also have learned is that a lot of them are really struggling because there is so little support from institutions, from like the universities or research centers where they are based at. And it sometimes does feel like they are like alone and like doing it all by themselves in their free time with their own money, and just having the feeling, okay, actually there are many people doing the exact same, and then we can exchange about these different things. Like, where do you get your funding? How do you manage your team? All these things. So I think, yeah, and like, how can we replace that? So what we want to do is like leading up to the 𝗕's, we will have a couple of workshop series that like address actually like these top 100 finalists that we have this year, plus our community from the previous years. So it's actually also like starting to mix them and actually get a feel of like getting into the engaged community means like a long-term engagement. Like if you want to, you're really invited to actually stay on, like, and get involved and like meet new people constantly. It's like not that the whole journey ends on 9th November and then like, was nice to meet you, goodbye. So actually, for example, for our first onboarding of the top 100 this year, we had Stephanie also like come into our call and present together with a finalist from the year before that together and speak to our new engagers. So it's actually really like across batches from the previous year, connecting people. To just give like a rough idea of what we're aiming at in general, it's like we have these three areas, key areas that we're looking at, like what we want to achieve with Engage. So the first one, I think I have elaborated on, is like the community. So we really want to connect people from everywhere. And it's really interesting because also a little bit like peeking behind the curtain, I think, is also that it is a struggle to really decide like who do you want to have on stage. I think with many initiatives that are similar to ours, they really look for the best of the best, right? And I mean, we do the same, but like oftentimes it can limit the range of projects that you present to, for example, like maybe the English-speaking countries, because they have a very long history of science engagement and science communication. They are kind of like 30 years almost ahead in the whole conversation, and in many countries it's much younger. So obviously you could easily have like 20 projects from the UK on stage, but like, I mean, who's that helping, right? So I think for us, really like balancing about like having a diverse range of projects and then finding the best projects in each context. So that we really see like it's still the best projects from all around the world, but like we also like see that it's the best what they can do with the resources they have and like where they are at in the whole cultural or national dialogue on science communication in their context. So but it is a struggle, and I think we have been discussing with partners like how to do it best, because on the one hand we also want to see like what is happening in the field, like what is happening there right now with the most innovative approaches and most original approaches. The second part is activation, where we want to reach out to people that are not active as science engagers yet, but where we believe there's a huge potential for them to become science engagers themselves, for example, teachers or scientists that, yeah, for whatever reason don't think of it at the moment, but it would be a very easy step for them. And we started to have a podcast. It's called The Science Engager and You. We like just started it, so it's only like 2 episodes now, and we have interviews with our community where they tell actually about their journey, how they became science engagers, and like how it maybe even was difficult to stop their scientific career or like make sacrifices a little bit. And the last field is the perception change, where actually we look even beyond that and we look at the public, and we want the public to build trust in science and actually rely on science and be enabled to make fact-based decisions. So that's actually like really the long-term goal, so that it has like a positive impact. but we can only provide the foundation for that. Eventually, like the engagers in our community, I think, will be the ones like driving that change, right? And so this competition or conference in Berlin that we had in the first year, and then like a second time last year, was such a success that actually afterwards people came, like they came to us and they said, actually, like we need to think this bigger, we need to do more than that. And it was really great to see the enthusiasm and the success of what we were doing there, and that people were actually recognizing the need for it. So we had international partners coming to us, and so we decided to actually have not only this one-time event in Berlin, but think it much bigger and bring it to different places all around the year. So we decided to have the Falling Walls Engage hubs, which is a meeting of science engagers from the region where we're at with a specific hub, but also from our community. And there we are kind of like still a little bit exclusive in our approach, since we are still growing and it's a small community. At the moment, we are not advertising it like super public. So what we want to do is keep it very personal. Like we want to know all our engagers, what they're doing, and it should be like slowly growing only, so that really everyone has the feeling they are part of something, and they can actively engage and create with us. So when we go to a hub, we keep it quite small groups, so around like 20-25 people, and half of them will be engagers that we have already worked with, and the other half will be engagers that are invited by our partners in this country. So it's really small groups, although obviously at the moment, like with virtual events, it would be very easy to invite like many more people and have like much bigger groups. And we do have those kinds of events, but we're careful with that, because I think we see like much value in this personal exchange and really like peer group exchange, where you talk about things that are relevant for your challenges and you can deep dive into that. We had our very first hub in Kenya beginning of this year, and Stephanie will remember. It was beginning of March, and it was right before like the pandemic really hit Europe. And it was like, it was very exciting weeks, because we were never sure, should we actually go through with it or not? And it was like, I remember clearly, like I was already standing at the airport and like on the boarding counter, and I was like, oh my God, will I actually go on that plane? Because I wasn't really not sure if I had to go in quarantine, like when going to Kenya, because there were some fake news around that. And then also we had like some engagers already on the plane to Kenya, but others canceled last minute. It was really a mess, and it was actually our very first hub, so we were a bit nervous about how it would go. We were a much smaller group than intended, but it was still a very intense experience. And I think now looking back at it, it feels like Corona was already looming above us, but we still had such a good time. And then right when everyone was back home, it actually hit, and there was like airports being locked down. So it was really like the last opportunity to travel. But then obviously, like at Engage, we were looking at a year that we had completely planned differently, and it was absolutely not going the way we wanted it to go, because like what we had built on was really like meeting in person, get to know the science engagement community on the ground in their context. So we really super quickly had to adapt to that. And the first one, the next hub that we had planned was Sweden. And in really like a matter of weeks, we had to completely shift the concept, and also like try to find ways to make it an engaging and personal event that we wanted it to be, even in a virtual space. We were lucky enough to work together with a collective that was just founded in those days. It was based here in Berlin, but made up of people from like all over, and they were all already very familiar with virtual work in virtual environments, and they helped us a lot. They're called the Work Transformation Collective, and they were super experienced and helped us set up a format which on the one hand was personal, but also allowed us to really work on something and get something out. I believe. I mean, it's my perspective, obviously, so I hope it was. I think a difficulty was definitely because we had 2 times 3 hours, and 3 hours, I think, is like a magic border already, like for like making people sit in front of a computer and listen to you, or like engage as well. I think back then, I think it's slightly changing a little bit. I'm not sure about like everyone else's experience, but I think people get more tired of sitting in front of the computer for so long. But I feel back then there was kind of also like a sense of like, let's do this, and like everyone was trying to figure out what was happening. I think there was a really good sense of like, let's make this work. So when we did it end of April, the people were super committed and really enjoyed our efforts, and I think we tried to make happen a lot. So what we did, we had live music, we had meditations, we had dances, and we asked people to like do little segments where they got involved, like with, for example, poetry. So to actually keep it like super dynamic. I always compared it to a little bit to the 90s movie Speed, where like the bus driver has to keep at like a certain pace, otherwise the bus explodes. That is what it felt like organizing these online events, where it was really like you have to hit right the time at the right pace, because otherwise it gets too boring or too overwhelming. So this is what we try to do with like really changing up the formats, like every 10-15 minutes throughout the 3 hours. But obviously it makes it also a bit exhausting. So I think afterwards people were always like, "Ooh, that were quite some 3 hours." But it was fun. And just this week we finished our 3rd hub in Argentina, and as if we don't have enough on our plate already, we thought like, let's give ourselves another challenge, and we decided to do a hackathon. So a 48-hour, we actually eventually called it a SciComms, but it was like a 48-hour event where 150 participants from all around the world competed in 20 teams. They had certain challenges regarding the future of science engagement, and they worked on those. And I think the team that we worked with from Chile and Argentina and ourselves, we were kind of a bit underestimating the efforts that need to go into like organizing a hackathon, but it was still such a great experience, and that we just ended last week. The next one we will look at Canada, and then early next year in Australia. And it's not our favorite model, although we have really found like a good way to deal with this. But like long term, we obviously want to go back to in-person events, because I think this is all what Engage is about, like to meet and really exchange in person, and that it gets really personal, because it is personal for many of our engagers. It's not just a job, it's really their passion. But yeah, we will see how the situation will develop. For now, we are still quite happy with what we were able to make out of the situation and how we were able to adapt. But luckily, we had a good start last year with an amazing community like 𝗕cie𝗿𝗶𝗖cie𝗺𝗺 that actually had the chance to meet in person last year. And I think that was a really solid foundation to build up on, instead of just, if we would have just started like beginning of this year, it would have been so much more difficult. And now we see still like a lot of enthusiasm with the people that we onboard this year for Engage 2020. I have completely lost track of time, so I'm not sure how much more I have. Victoria, maybe you can just give me
how
a
much
quick
more
heads
do you want to tell us?
Well, let me, like, this is actually my final slide, so I can just say 2 sentences about that. As you see here, like, I actually made this drawing, and I wanted to just like show how there are so many ways to enter the community. So for example, like being part of our community doesn't need to have you go through the finale. You can actually start with a hub. And we are so happy to actually have engagers represent us and our mission at conferences. So we will, many times we send engagers on our behalf. And the big thing that we're looking at next year, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it will actually take place in person, is the huge global community gathering, which will be made up of the Engage finalists from all previous years and participants from the hubs. So we will have like an own little Engage conference that is detached from the November event, where we come together in Germany and celebrate science engagement. Yeah, I think this is all that I can come up with right now, but I'm so happy also to have answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niklas. That was very interesting. And fingers crossed that next year is different and we can come meet in person finally. Any questions are welcome. Let's have 5 minutes for questions and then we go to our events. But I have a question myself. How do you find people in these local hubs? I think this is probably very tricky, but did you figure out some good ways to do this?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I completely forgot to talk about it. And this is why actually in the very beginning I started to introduce Falling Walls as a whole, because it's such a comfortable position to actually base our activities on like what the foundation has been doing for 10 years, because they have developed an amazing network. And while long term, we really think of we want to venture into countries where we believe science engagement not to be so strong yet. We started with partners where we have really strong ties as a foundation already. So throughout our other programs like the lab, for example, we already know like very reliable partners, and so we started with those, and we had the chance last year in November, when many of them are coming to Berlin, we could talk to them and say like, hey, we have this new thing, it's called an Engage Hub, do you want to do this with us? And because they know us for so many years, they trusted us and they said like, yeah, let's make that happen. And it is quite a challenge, because I think we go into a country and we say like, actually, we don't have this one concept of a hub, but let's figure it out together. And many of our partners are actually in for the ride. For example, when we came to our Chilean partners and we said like, have you heard of a hackathon and should we do this? They were kind of like, yeah, let's do this. So that's really nice. So I think otherwise, or probably in future when we go to countries where we don't have those collaborations yet, then it will probably be more challenging to convince people why this is important. But we believe it is so necessary, because we are more than anything afraid of having a too narrow understanding of science engagement. Like, we want to learn and understand as much as possible, like how it is understood and practiced in different contexts and countries, like science engagement, to not just reproduce what we believe it is. And so I think in the long term, it is super important to go to these countries to see like they might be doing like a science engagement in a very different way, but they might be doing it for years already, and then like what can we learn from that? So I think, for example, looking at Australia, where we will go, there are initiatives that include, for example, like the native population, and they do stuff, but it might not be so obvious for our eyes. But it's so important to learn about that.
Cool. Very interesting.
And small...
Liva?
No, go ahead.
I just want to summarize. So basically, for you, you started with the already established contacts, and it was good that the Falling Walls already exists for years, and there are many partners
Yeah, and of course, I have to give credits to Stephanie, for example, for our first hub in Kenya. It was just amazing to have someone from our community based there, and she was such a great help. Like actually, because we organized the hub like from Berlin, where many of our team had never been to Nairobi. And then Stephanie was so amazing to go to a couple of places and check them out, actually like checking a hotel, like eventually the one that we went to with all the engagers. So it's really like a joint effort from everyone who's somehow involved, and that's really, really helpful. But there's also, yeah, it's sometimes like running into open doors, because people know Falling Walls, although it's like not a super well-known international brand, but like the few people that know actually really welcome us wherever we go.
Nice. 𝗕𝗶, did you have a question? Or she is part, okay. Seems that 𝗕𝗶 is a bit disconnected right now. Let's go into the next presentation. No?
I am sorry. I'm really sorry. I was just yeah, moving a bit, and it was disconnected. But one small question to you is about the network. If you draw a network of Falling Walls engaged, how it would look like how hierarchical it is. Do you have an impression of that, like without looking to the data, for example?
Yeah, so actually we have really discussed about like how we actually look at our network and how we would draw it. And for now, like the best that we came up with, kind of thinking it in circles that get bigger and bigger. So for us, like our inner circle are like the people that we really closely work together with, that are part of our community, that either have been at a hub or on the Engage finale stage. And then the second circle would be like the science engagers around us that we know of, but that we haven't been in touch with. And then thinking of what we call the engagers to be, like scientists, teachers that are kind of like maybe have already an interest, but that don't do any science engagement yet. And then like past that, there would be the public that is interested in science, that goes to museums, actually takes part in the initiatives, that is like in some parts the target group of the initiatives, but like they are not scientists themselves. And then beyond that, and that is actually also like the most, like not the most interesting, but like a very interesting group for us, is actually like everyone who has no interest in science, and these people we actually want to include more into this. But if you're also looking at like hierarchies in this like circles in the middle, then I think we don't really have any, or like we aim at not having any. So what we try to do is really include the engagers and have them be part of like what Engage could be. So we had, for example, we started a new format. We just tried it out. Victoria was actually part of the first test, which happened a couple of weeks ago. It's called like the Engage Bazaar. And that was completely developed with an engager from India, 𝗕𝗁. It was like partly her idea, and we developed it, and then we said like, let's implement it, and we want to grow that bigger. So wherever there is an opportunity, we want the engagers to be part of this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Science School. I think that Anna has a question. Anna.
Yeah, I have a question. So, Nicholas, could you tell us what is the easiest, or like what are the ways to become an engager? How to join you guys?
So I mean, so this is basically a twofold question, right? Like on the one hand, like if you want to become a science engager in general, then that would be just finding a good way of communicating your science in a way that is interactive and includes people and makes your target group kind of become scientists themselves in a way, or that they really feel like included in this whole scientific process or dialogue. But if you're asking also about like how to become an engager in capital letters, like how we call our community members, then it's really like either taking part in one of our hubs, which is not so easy at the moment, as I have mentioned beforehand, because it's kind of really directed at our community. Although, for example, 𝗕𝗶𝗁𝗶𝗖cie was really great in like getting on new people also and inviting them from her community, and we never exclude anyone. It's just that at the moment we kind of try to find the right pace at growing our community. Or obviously like applying for the 𝗕𝗫 finale, which is closed for this year, but like then next year, and then present whatever initiative you have in November in Berlin.
Thanks, Nicholas. Anna, you have a follow-up, or are you happy with the answer?
Yeah, I'm happy with the answer. I just wanted to thank Nicholas for this answer.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks. Stephanie.
Just a quick question. So I see 𝗕𝗏𝗏 Foundation is proclaiming to have an international year of trying to know the idea behind this, the expected outcome, and how does science engage particularly play in this? Because when we talk about science engagement in the 𝗕𝗏𝗏 Foundation, that particular segment plays a very key role. And what do you see the role of the science engagers in this task of having an international year for science engagement?
Yeah. I wasn't sure at first if I got your question right, because like it was a little disconnected, but you're asking me if I got it correctly about the International Year of Science Engagement and like how the science engagers can be part of it. So the International Year is an initiative by United Nations, and in the past there have been many international years for like very, very different things. For example, I think once we had an International Year of Quinoa, for example. And the thing is like that anyone or like any institution can actually go to the United Nations or one of its bodies, for example, UNESCO, and propose a topic for the International Year. There can also be several topics per year, but it's quite a long process to get there. So actually it's like you have to have in mind a couple of years to actually go to one organization, come up with a proposal, and then at some point they will bring it to the General Assembly and they will decide on the International Year. So what we are like when we're talking about like a timeline now, we are thinking of like 5 years, right? So our interest is to actually push for an international year for science engagement. And while 𝗕𝗏𝗏, for example, would push for it and make that happen, hopefully, it would not mean that we own it. It would then be like open for anyone to be part of it. Like any science institution can then say like, we want to be part of the International Year of Science Engagement. While obviously, because we have started it, we would probably also have somehow a prominent role, maybe, I don't know. And then depending on like how that goes, we would definitely have our engagers be included in like year-round activities to push and make this topic more seen. So I think the goal of pushing it is actually like that we believe that still in society in general, there's like little understanding for science engagement. Maybe many people don't even know about it. And many scientists actually don't have that opportunity on their radar or don't think of it as part of their possible career path. And so the idea is to actually make it more known and to help the engagers that it becomes more institutionalized also, because like many people in our community say there's so little recognition and support from people that should be supporting us because they are science institutions, but they put the money more into research because that's more interesting for them, but it shouldn't be. And like, I mean, we see a little bit of change in the sense that like many fundings have now like 10% dedicated, for example, to such initiatives. And I think that's positive. And these are things that we want to push more with this international year. But Stephanie, it's really like we're talking 5 years from now, so it won't be like super quick.
Thank you, Nicholas. It's actually the first time I heard about this initiative, but it's good to know. Very interesting. And for those who also heard it for the first time, I posted the link in the chat so you can read more about this. I think now I suggest that we move on to the next presentation, and I hope Nicholas can stay longer with us, and later we can maybe have more chat about different topics. Thanks a lot, Nicholas.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So Aravind, I welcome you to be on stage. Tell us a bit about yourself and your experience with falling walls and how it changed your life, if somehow, what was it for your project, and tell us, of course, about your 𝗕space Academy.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Just yeah. Hi. Thanks for the invitation. And so we have some. I mean, pretty much everyone knows me and my projects here. So basically, I call myself an interdisciplinary expert or ecosystem builder, where I've been building different ecosystem in different domains. So all my focus is most of my, so to say, my domain is based in basically engineering, science, art, and sustainability. So yeah, so I was the last year, as Nicholas mentioned, in the last year, Falling Walls Engage, we were very privileged to participate. I think we are so basically I'm from Sri Lanka, but I'm based in Berlin now. And we were the first team so far. Even there was never a team even to a Falling Walls Labs or anything. And we were the first team to even enter this stage. And then a lot of struggle, with a lot of rejection on the way. And we actually won the Falling Walls Engage Award, and it has actually opened a lot of doors for us after that, because we used to be very small, underprivileged organization in some island in remote part of the world, and then we all of a sudden we got a lot of exposure, and also motivated us to go further with similar approach and recognition, which you are not initially focusing on. Yeah. So today I would love to maybe, like, if I tell a bit more about the 𝗕space Academy, and also as to answer like the questions that could be interesting for the communities, that how we actually make it work, and how do we find partners and sponsors, and how do we find people for the team and manage our team, and how do we connect with all local and international organizations. So basically sharing our journey as a story. And I hope you can see that. Yeah, the screen. So
Yes.
𝗕space Academy, we call more of a community innovation center, rather than calling, you know, yet another STEM, STEAM, robotics, or these kind of makerspace organization in which you can find a lot in the global north. So we call ourselves Community Innovation Center because we actually wanted to solve the environmental challenges, but we are based in global south in Sri Lanka. So the socioeconomic challenge is always the first that you solve than any other challenge. And with this challenges, we are building our capacity, well, that's why we call it challenge-based learning. So actually our topic at the Falling Walls Engage, I think the title was how are we breaking the wall of subject-based learning? And so basically, yeah, so our methodology is a project and challenge-based learning. And the motivation, like, so to say, why I wanted to do that, because I was born in Sri Lanka during the wartime, you know, at a difficult time where like several family members, you know, slaughtered in the war, and lived in the war zone till 14 years old, and I have to, you know, escape just, you know, in the fear of being a child soldier. So I left the country and then exiled for 9 years. And then when the war ended after 30 years, and when I went back to Sri Lanka, that I, you know, after 9 years of exile, I understood one thing, that, you know, when you have a conflict for 30 years in a country, that you have pretty much every international aid organization harbored there. It's not only Sri Lanka, you can find it in every country in the global south, you know, and then what if we look at the curve here, so that 1979 the war started, 2009 and ended. So the longer the war, the younger the soldier. So that was the reason that I have to escape. And when I saw that it has become one of the least innovative country, and then one of the biggest challenge that I saw is, like, you know, people were super dependent on international aid organizations and everything international. Because one example, during the time I was living, we used to have one paper factory, and they shut it down because the Japanese government told they can't give paper. So that much, you know, even the simplest thing, the country has lost the ability to create local solutions. So I didn't want to be just yet another international aid. I thought that local should solve the local challenges, and that's the right empowerment these international aid organizations can give, rather than giving things for free. So we worked out, it took a lot of years for me to work out on the model, and also to find the right co-founder on the ground. And so our motto was basically to empower the creative minds, you know, in the underprivileged from the war-affected region. And then for them, we wanted to create a program, we call it a maker education, where we were like training them to make anything from photography to you know, biotechnology. And we don't stop there, because most of the education, the organization, they just teach people and they say, okay, now you can go and find a job. But where will they go and find a job if there was no real opportunity or industry around? So we really wanted to create industry around every challenge. So that's how we start, you know, creating local solutions using open innovation. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, because there's a solution for open innovation for everything. And then we don't stop there, and ultimately just guiding them to become entrepreneurs and create an industry around that. So that's what we do. And yeah, as I mentioned, we're a nonprofit social enterprise, very, very, very careful about keeping the balance between the social mission and the business venture, because most of the time, most of the social organizations, they are independent because they don't do the business, you know. And so we have the balance, and then of course we are, you know, empowering the underprivileged communities. I would say with the support of local resourceful players. So the community is kind of mixed. So what is our life cycle? So it's a 4-stage life cycle. Usually, people, when they get identified, they go through these stages. And I would go with the story then, you know, to explain our life cycle. So here you see is Sanjeevan. You know, Sri Lanka is a very colonial, English colonial country, so we still have the GCSE system, and so all the scout and so on. And then while he was in the GCSE A level, in the school, high school, high secondary, and he was very much about, like, you know, saving the environment and, you know, like kind of protecting and bringing peace to the society and so on. And after he finished the school, he decided to, with his friend, he decided to walk from the north of the island to the south of the island. I mean, it's not a very small island, it's big, like, you know, it's around 65,000 square kilometer island. So through the jungle and forest, and then for 14 days or something, he was walking, and to promote peace. And then he was still just 18 years old boy. And then because of that, an international aid organization or some international support came and gave him a support to climb Elbrus. So it's in Russia, but it's the peak of the continental Europe. And he is the first Sri Lankan Tamil teenager to climb Elbrus. And after all these things, he goes home, and his parents want him to be a lawyer. And this is the problem in the global south, that, you know, he has nothing to do with law, but the parents want. So that's where we jump in. So when we identify a person, we just empowerment starts with empowering the parent, not with the you know, it has to go from the other angle, because you cannot just empower young people just without empowering the family or the parents. So when we identified, okay, he's a really good talent and good motivated person, we could really empower him and engage him in science and to solve our challenges. And then so we went and asked the parents, and they gave us 1 year period of time, so he doesn't have to go to university, he can just do things with us. And so we brought him into our first stage, where we have been giving in multidisciplinary workshop from electromechanics to business modeling, financial modeling, photography, storytelling, everything that we have really different labs. And then we identified, okay, he's really good to create solutions. Not everyone is, even after we give training, is not everyone is good enough to do. Is that he goes to the second stage, and it's called community innovation stage. And this is a huge difference for us than any other makerspace or any type of organization. In this stage, these talents, they get a salary to be with us. It's like a full-time job for them to be engaged and to deliver something quality, not just do something for hobby, but just do something. But it's for their life. The money that they get is to achieve their life goals. In that stage, we identify what domain they want to work, and what challenge they want to solve in that domain currently. So when we started with Sanjeevan, he told that he really wants to hike and dive and do in the nature. And then we identified that, okay, his domain is something that is nature. So for us, we are based on the east coast of Sri Lanka. When tsunami hit, we were the first city town to be hit, and then we are surrounded by a lot of backwater, ocean, a lot of water mass around us. So water is the biggest resource for us. Even for the whole Sri Lanka, the exclusive economic zone, the blue economy is should be 7 times bigger than the green economy, but it's not much focus. And then, so we said, okay, let's work on the water economy and water domain. And what challenge we want to solve is basically we wanted to profile the ocean and the backwaters for different multi-parameter water quality. Why we wanted to do, because this water backwater used to be very biodiverse, which is not that anymore. So one example I can tell, during the colonial time, Batikalo, our town used to be, it's called as city of singing fish, because during the colonial time, there were these ecologists, there were a lot of churches around the coast. They started hearing a lot of songs coming from the backwaters in the night, in the full moon. And then they started studying, and they found that there were certain type of fishes, and they are making kind of a chorus in the night and on the full moon, and that it becomes kind of a song, kind of a music. And that's why we are called City of Singing Fish. But it's, probably a lot time ago. But then when tsunami hit, that changed a lot. A lot of those bio species and this biodiversity has been lost. A lot of things changed, and after the war, all the textile industries have started appearing. Of course, they're not polluting comparatively. It's not polluted when compared to nearby regional countries in Southeast Asia. And but we really want to protect it, before it goes wrong. So we wanted some device which can actually measure multi-parameter water, in a large water mass. And for that, we said, okay, this is the domain, this is the project, and then we started working on an underwater glider. So underwater glider is an autonomous vehicle which goes in a long range. It's not like an underwater drones, which are tethered, you need to drive them, and short range. This is something goes on long distance for many months on a single charge, because it's just glides. Such thing costs 200,000 euro. But we will never be able to buy, even the country cannot buy it. So we decided to take an open source project and started developing with the support of the original author of the project to build a platform where we can actually put the sensors for multi-parameter water. And that's the moment, to answer the question, where do we get the fund? That's the moment we write, because we have been well trained in different things. We are very good in storytelling, so that we put the proposal. We put the story of him, his domain is the challenge, how much time it's going to take him to empower from the first stage to the last stage, and what is the whole impact of the life cycle. And we make a document. This is the time that the candidate also gets to learn how to write proposal document, the business proposals, the scientific documents, and the references, how to use all very technically and politically correct document, and then we submit this to diaspora, basically Sri Lankan Tamil diaspora. Say that this is, you see that we have a talent, we have a project, we are sitting in some country or maybe high net worth value individual, you know, and could you support us? And that's how we get individual funding for individual talent. We empower, and so the families would say, okay, we give you this amount of money to do this as an impact investment. And so every case is individual. That's why, and that's how they learn also to how to raise funds in just being 19 years old. And then they are part of the whole process. Our talent is part of the whole process in the scientific and the business side. And he got the fund from Canadian diaspora and family. And yeah, so the third stage. So he started building his prototype, and he's very good in electromechanical engineering. He learned all these things, and he also trained himself in different things. And so now the third stage is he really needs to understand oceanology or water. We don't have that knowledge or the access to that training. So in the third stage, what happened? Either candidate goes to another big research center or organization to get the quickly, you know, that's a kind of crash course training on the topic, or the scientists go from here, from Europe to Sri Lanka to stay with our team and to build a curriculum around the project that we are working. It's like 𝗕𝗶𝗶 lecture without borders. They're like, you know, a lot of people have gone to Sri Lanka, my friends and communities, to do that. And this is a very important thing, because when you have a social enterprise in Global South, you need to really incentivize people, the talents, and also the family, because the family always wanted like a big exposure, big thing. So if you are a small community with like small local people will not consider you as a big organization. So we always have international crowd there, or either they go internationally to get that exposure. So that's the third stage. And for Sanjeevan, we just put his proposal to a few places, and then he got selected to go to this place. This is called 𝗕𝗁. It's in the middle of Atlantic Ocean. This is the only deep ocean research center in the deep sea research center basically in the ocean. And Sanjeevan is the first Asian to be selected young talent to go there. And he was supposed to go there in October, but you know, because of regulations in Spain, they're closing down, so they moved the program to next year May. So if you look at it, it's like a big center where they have like all the vehicle, all the research facility there. It's 2 floors here, research, and this is that glider that they use. It's 200,000 euro glider. It goes basically from Gran Canaria to Bahamas on a single charge in 6 months, and it comes back. That's why you pay the 200K for that. You know, even though sometimes fishes or boats attack. So that's the stage for him. The third stage, once that is done, Sanjeevan is what he's going to do. He's going to go and locally pilot the solution in the local government and then local ministries. And then the fourth stage is to productize the solution and then be an entrepreneur and build an industry around it, and also to give jobs and you know, things to other people. And he already started doing. He went and pitched this thing to several international like UNDP and different international and national organization. He already got several funds and green flag to start, and he's still 19 years old. So the 1 year that the parents gave is already coming to an end to prove that he took this path and of completely going from product development to being an entrepreneur. Yeah, so this is our life cycle. This is how it goes, and every talent, every candidate is different. So it's like, for us, we call it one-to-one empowerment program for 18 months, but it's actually one candidate and 20 people on our team put like 18 months of time, like on everything to develop that candidate. Maybe in our lifetime, we may only empower 10 people, 10 candidates, but they are the seed. They can go and study and do engineer, whatever that, but they have already learned something that it takes someone doing 4 years of bachelor's and then 2 years of master's and many years of research and probably many years of industry experience. That candidate could learn that in 18 months. We have very good new candidates, and she's the one whom I identified in February in Sri Lanka when I was there, from an extremely remote village, almost like a jungle village. she was brought. I mean, how do we find these people? So to answer this question, it's not that we are not an organization. We have like open shop that people come. We actually go to the field to find them, because this is where they are. They are in their vulnerable societies and environment. We have to go and find them. So her well-wisher, one of the chemistry teacher in our village school, approached us, and then when we met her, and I was literally shocked, because she was developing a biomass filter. So basically grinding the seeds of this fruit is called Java plum, to remove cadmium from the water. And if you go and tell this to like people in city, the young girls and boys, they won't even know why there is a cadmium in the water and what is cadmium. But like someone sitting somewhere in village is thinking about this. Actually, she's even thinking about the people living in city, because cadmium mainly comes from the water pipes. In villages, they have only ponds and wells. So the problem is big in cities. And so when we identified her, she was 16 years old, and we brought her in. And it's difficult because she's the family wouldn't allow her to operate freely from our village. So I have to empower the family. Family kind of trusted the well-wisher, the teacher. And then we presented a project to the Stockholm International Water Institute. And this is again a very prestigious award by the Royal Society of Stockholm. And she's the one who got selected among 40 countries to be there. And yeah, like that, we have several candidates. Yeah, so we are talking about 2. And as I mentioned, we have several labs, electronic software, mechanics, business, art, bio, story lab, textile lab, and we have more labs. We have been always building the labs based on the capacity, the new capacity that comes in. And also we have several community innovation projects, not only the glider, and also, as I said, all our focus is based on environmental sustainability, take a little bit of open innovation to R&D and try to find local ways of manufacturing. Lot of international collaboration we have. How do we do that is basically our approach through our networks, and we offer a value why they have to do it. For example, if you look at most of our international experts, they pay for their tickets, and we take care of the local transport and accommodation. They come for 5-6 weeks. And why they want to do that is because one of the things that we were pitching is that most of these people have been living probably in global north, but that they actually have some ancestry or connection to global south, some other underdeveloped country. And they always, maybe they are first generation, second generation, third generation diaspora, but they really wanted to do something for their people, but they don't know how to do it. So we are basically providing a platform, established platform for them to learn from us how they can do, and they can take the whole methodology and go and reproduce wherever they want. That's how we get all the international organizations to support us. And we have been also chosen by the Stockholm and also the Duke of Edinburgh as national coordinator to run their program in Sri Lanka. And we have several social enterprises born, spinned off, and we have also projects which are non-scientific, like this is a location at the beach where we have actually, we are running like cafe with, digital nomadism and events and music and herbal food and so on. And when this is how they balance the business venture. When there's some form of money comes from these ventures, we just feed it into our social mission. So we have several of them. We have a copy shop, like a photocopying shop, which produces 100,000 rupees per month for us. So we just feed it back into our social mission. So we try to do different things parallelly with the independent team. And then, everything that we want to do is community-driven businesses, and also find ways to bring in mini factories. So for example, if we have a few more electronic products, and we will have like container-based factories to produce that locally, and then this is how we can also give jobs to other people who are not part of Green Space. We have 3 locations as of now, and one in jungle and in the city, like a half a kilometer from the beach, and this is like 20 meters from the beach. Very diverse, and art. We do a lot of art because art is a medium of expression for us. We are also building an ethical lab or ethics lab and policy lab where we use art as a medium to express political opinion. So we do a lot of them, videos and music and micro arts and fine arts and so on. And this is all where it started. So as I mentioned, we started, the whole project was started with my co-founder, so Kishore. He's a social worker activist since he's 16 years old, dedicated his life, is now 24 plus. And he adopted, we started the project in a jungle borderland village there in Sri Lanka, and we now adopted 104 kids from the school there. So one of the challenges that they have is like wild elephant conflict. So in 2019, 84 people have been killed by human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka. And then if you ask these kids, every third kid would say that someone in their family died because of that. And then, but of course, during the wartime, we didn't have electricity. There was like the solar panel-based electric fences and stuff, international solutions, and all these firecrackers, poison, landmines to shy away the elephants. But the ugly part of the story is that in 2019, 390 elephants died in Sri Lanka by human-elephant conflict, which the highest time, the last time that happened in Sri Lanka was in the colonial time for the ivory trade. So all these international solutions is kind of didn't help them. So one time when we were running these events for them, and we asked them to draw like an ideal world for them, and they still have elephants part of the ideal world. And so these locals have been talking about coexistence, but these international solutions that have been given to them was not actually, taking the local and original, the aboriginal or the local tribal knowledge into the consideration. They use them only for the deployment, not for the development. So the DreamSpace whole idea is to co-create the coexistence by empowering them to solve their problems on their own, and to solve such a complex problem. Not like most of the organizations they say we teach coding to people. It's not enough. We train many things, multidisciplinary, and that's how they can solve their problem on their own on a long term. And this is what we do at DreamSpace. And 23 minutes, sorry.
Thank you, Araviv. That was very, very impressive. I welcome questions now, and I will start with the first one. You mentioned 20 people, so I'm guessing it's around 20 people who are the team of the DreamSpace Academy, right? I'm wondering if for you this is the main activity, or is it that you do in your free time as volunteers, or how is it organized on the side of the organization?
So everyone is except me is fully there. So on the ground, I'm just basically the vision and the mission and guiding them, because they're very young people, very under 20 or 25. So helping them with all all the guidances, so pretty much we have calls every day, and then on Fridays fully half of the days that I spend with them, so all of us, they are on the ground. We have a very flat hierarchy. We have a co-governance model, which we have kind of adapted from different projects. DreamSpace is not the only organization. I have 7 organizations totally in different continents, and so that I learned from other organizations. And so one of my another organization operates social enterprise operates in 40 countries in global south. So we have learned a lot already by the co-creation and the co-governance, and then we just adapt and customize to each and every location. So these are the things that I do, and also identify. So my role mainly is that to identify. So when these people, they say, okay, this is candidate. So I go through the coaching process to identify what exactly they want to do in their life and what is the project to do, and then, guide them, and then choosing the project and bringing the connections, the funding and opportunities and these kind of stuff. I teach everything. So every workshop is initially taught by me as a I train the trainers, and then they do it further. So everything pretty much that has been trained in DreamSpace is created, the curriculum is created by me, and so on. So, yeah.
And the people who are in Sri Lanka, they are being paid from the money that you fundraise.
Yes, we have fun. We have, as I said, we have business side. We have a fun grants and funds and challenges. One of the way that we generate a lot of money, it could be interesting for people, is policy making. So a lot of people fail to do that. So if you look at UN and CPB, Center for Peace Building and Reconciliation, so UN has huge, every international aid organization has a huge fund for humanitarian and peace building and reconciliation. but they do it in a very traditional way. They just bring different ethnic group people or old people into a room and give them, like, some food and Fanta, and they talk about peace building. This is how it has been, at least as far as I know, in many countries. So, but what we did initially, this paper we also drafted in Nakuru in Kenya a lot. Stephanie would remember that. Is that we call it the Open Science for Peace Building. So what we did, we went to the UN and we told that we also peace building, but we are peace building by passion. So doesn't matter which ethnic group you belong, and just come. If you want to dance, just come and dance with us. So science, and that open science is the passion. So we call it Open Science for Peace Building. And a lot of my other organization, we did a lot of paperwork and the white paper on this. And with that, what we did, we went to each and every international aid organization, and we offered our knowledge and capacity as an external training program. So since we are not very much affected by the corona crisis, because we have been given an opportunity by Australian Aid to run a program called Skills for Inclusive Growth. We designed, we trained, we did everything for them, because they used to do something different. We went and told them, okay, we have this capacity and knowledge, we can do this. And then we gave it to them. They gave us 5.5 million Sri Lankan rupees, and that's why we survived the crisis. So the total program was like around 8 months programs to create initially 20, now we have 27 storytellers about ecotourism. So we have to give them the right livelihood skills to become storytellers. So it starts with photography, filmography, how to make website, how to make business modeling, how to do the digital marketing, and so on. And they know electronics mechanics is very specific to the storytelling part, and so on. And now, like several international organizations, they want us to run their program.
Very interesting. So you work as the consultants and trainers for international.
Yeah, we run basically. We are the project execution program managers. So they give the money, we do everything for them. And with this, we were able to pay a lot of salaries to the, and pay our rent and salaries, and then parallelly we could do the other stuff. This is what I mentioned. You have to exactly balance the social vision, social mission, and the business venture. Otherwise, it will be. We cannot just be dependent on the funds and the grants. It can stop anytime.
That's very, very interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I would also not really come up with such an idea, but it seems like a really great also way to benefit both sides. So who else has any questions? Stephanie?
I didn't have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
But okay, since you've just pointed me out, I think my question will be, what do you feel is the challenge in terms for the science engagement community when it comes to the funding? Because you see, Dreams has gotten that balance of the social aspect of it, and also creating headache is usually how do we fund, how do we get into the private sector, how do we just expand from the normal traditional system of just applying for grants. So what do you think? It's not a question even, it's just like a comment, and just having your take on it. What do you, because you're also a science engager.
It's super difficult what you asked. It was just breaking. Sorry for that. So I think the challenges. So you're asking what are the challenges that in the community as a science engager, right?
I think how you can comment on this challenge of getting funding. Do you have maybe other tips and tricks people can use, because it's always a difficult part, and maybe not everyone has a business side that they can use for funding their project? What would you advise them? if anything?
I mean, that's what I always say, like, you know, it's simple that if you're building, if every organization is building. So as I mentioned that we are empowering the underprivileged community, but I would say it's a mixed community because we have underprivileged one side and we have resourceful place on the other side. So what I'm saying, when you're building a capacity, sell this capacity somewhere else also parallelly at the same time. Like, you know, like if you can use this capacity to go to give workshops in the universities and get paid, or in the corporate, the government, or the whatever it is, you know, banks and schools and so on, where there is a little bit of money, and then slowly once you start doing it, and then you will be able to see a little bit of cash flow. And that's what I'm saying. So just try to use it try to sell it where it is needed, or where it can be paid. At the same time, we will be giving that to people who do not have anything. So yeah, because if every organization is gonna have at least one skill or the capacity good at it, so it could be useful for many other people.
Cool. That really made me thinking what we could do. So I'm running a science communication event in Munich, and yeah, we on one hand we managed to do it quite low on investment, because this is events that are local, so and there is not much that we have to pay for. But on the other hand, we could do more if we had more funds. And what you just said, Aravind, is a very interesting idea, that we could maybe also offer some of our skills for profit. Like, we have gained a lot of skills in preparation of talks and making really complex things understandable, and this is definitely interesting.
Definitely. I mean, science communication. I mean, I'm part of another organization called Access to Perspective. So this is purely, you know, for profit. That we have a lot of people who can, you know, do science communication, and we put this as a proposal to bigger universities or corporates in the global north as an online kind of a workshop, and then they pay for it because they and also, like, you know, these days a lot of deep tech, deep science startups are appearing here and there, and they can do only expert to expert talk. You know, they cannot even tell their story themselves to their. I'll tell you, like, I run another organization since 2013. It's called Science Hack Day Berlin in Berlin, and it's a global thing. So what we do is we actually train scientists to express or to explain their scientific project through art, right? So we were training, like, we would give all the tools. We like teach software, we teach hardware, how to present, how to do that, and then they get engaged. And we had one 2014. I remember there was one theoretical physics professor from a university who participated. And then he did a lot of things and then learned everything. And then after a year, I saw one of the pieces that he did, and which we presented in different places, that he took a popcorn machine, and there was a popcorn machine with a lot of microphones, and there was an iPad, and then what he had, so when you switch on the popcorn machine, that the microphone was actually measuring how many corns were popped and counting it. And there was in the screen, there was a curve of the you know, the popcorn that pops, and below that there is a curve of the nuclear fission reaction, which is same. You know, popcorn pops like that. You know, 1 to 8. You know, just exponential. And then he told us, the people who actually trained him for almost a year, and he said that came to us and told that he left the job as a professor. He became a data visualizer, and he said that, I asked, oh really? Do you enjoy that? And he said that first time in his life he was able to explain something to his family what he does. After we gave him a medium and a skill how to express his science in a different way, you know. And so this is a service. I see a lot of companies, a lot of scientists who have been very good in illustrations and animation. Now they became science communicator for like a lot of companies, because they understand the science part and they just put it in a, you know, beautiful way. And that is a demand now. I can definitely see. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. That's very, very interesting. Does anyone else has a question?
I think someone was asking behind noise. Yeah, but anyway, it's a small group.
Well, I would suggest, and we will now finish the recording, but everyone is welcome to stay a little bit more and ask more informal questions if you have any. So thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you very much, Aravind, for sharing all this insightful and inspiring stories.